actually, and it has to do with something that's been sort of wending its way into language, and it's wended its way into my language. And I literally had a conversation with two folks today about this, because somebody else brought it up, and I was so psyched to actually be able to kind of think about this and and uh, and address it here in this context. So the issue is, it's a way of speaking that you may use. You might not even be aware that you're using it, and but I'm concerned about it because ultimately it's it may be inadvertently being colonizing of people, and I believe it's an unintentional thing, but it's I want to raise attention to it before it starts to be so pervasive that we literally can't stop. It was hilarious when was having this conversation with the first person I was talking to about this, because we were trying to stop doing it. We kept doing it, and it's the right thing. It's like, so you know about all this stuff that's going on, right? And that sometimes when people do these things, they say this, right? And they say it because they're so angry, right? It's the right thing that I actually, and you can look at videos of me doing these, and you'll hear me doing it. It's come up, it's entered into my language, and the reason why I find it to be a really interesting thing to bring up in this context is because it's one of those things where we might say, I never use colonizing language, right? And as you can see by how I just did that intentionally, that it's literally it's unintentionally colonizing. It can even seem like it's kind of collaborative, like I'm engaging you in this conversation, right? And we're all talking together, right? And we're all talking about the same thing, right? So, but it's not, because as soon as you say that, right, you've actually you've assumed my agreement. You've created my agreement and are moving on with my agreement, whether you're even aware of it or not. And so how sort of potentially kind of problematic language kind of just gets into the way that we speak is something that this is emblematic of, an example of. And so for me, it's this is really about how my intention is to kind of be aware. My intention has always been to be aware of potentially colonizing language. The fact that this has kind of wended its way into my own way of speaking is, an example of how completely unintentionally these things can crop up. And so I'm just throwing it out there. Literally, I want to heighten awareness. I'm the guy who, back when people started talking about social media, was saying there's nothing social about this. This is a website. It's a website mostly intended to sell things. Calling it social media creates this euphemism about what it actually is that's completely inaccurate. Well, that went really well. As you can tell, nobody talks about social media now. Yeah, that didn't have any effect, but I don't know. It's certainly, it's something that it's a drum that I keep beating. But this is potentially a more subtle one. I don't know. It's something that has come up that I'm hearing more and more often. And the first friend that I was talking to about this thought that it was about 5 years ago that this started, and I'm not sure, but it's a thing. There's a number of things that come up in language that I find absolutely that are I was going to say fascinating, and I think actually that is also a potentially colonizing way to speak, because it removes me. It's a fascinating thing, and it creates this sort of objective position for me to be fascinated by something, as opposed for me to be talking about it as something that I'm very much interested in, perhaps concerned about, have an opinion about, which is more accurate. And so language that's more accurate is definitely something I'm interested in. And so yeah, so think about this. I hope this isn't going to like drive people crazy with it. Oh my God, I say it all the time. I didn't even know. And it's not. It's used in that kind of oh, this language is definitely colonizing, right? And I'm talking about it right now, right? And it's like it's that kind of a right. It's not really. It's not when you're actually asking a question. And so talked a lot about questions here at What's Next, and and that's the kind of thing that seems like a question, but it's not. It's a statement, and it creates an invitation. At least for me, it creates this sort of this is some kind of agreement that I'm being drawn into without anybody ever asking me if I'm consenting to that, or if I'm actually in agreement. And So anyway, something to ponder. That's something to ponder for today. It's What's Next with Dr. Joel. I'm Dr. Joel, and I'll be back tomorrow with something. It's hard to know what, but certainly with something. Hope everybody's having a great day and continues to do so.